Mr. and Mrs. Good morning and welcome to the Pan-African Central for Scientific and Cultural Researches based in Douala in Cameroon. Welcome also to our political program today. Today, our main focus is the death of Mr. MELES ZENAOUI, the Ethiopian Prime Minister, who has been ruling the country for about 20 years and who died yesterday in Brussels in only 57 years. After this sad death of the Ethiopian political leader, we are going to see what image we can keep about the man, the leader. And second, we will try to examine what consequences this sudden death can have over the political scene in Ethiopia. According to the image of the leader, Mr. MELES ZENAOUI was considered as a patriot with respect of Ethiopia, or either in respect with Africa. That means Mr. ZENAOUI was a Pan-Africanist. We do remember when in 2002, at the creation of the African Union, some voices wanted a new capital for the new structure. But Mr. ZENAOUI was one of those people who was absolutely against that opinion. That he was deeply decided for Ethiopia to remain the host country of the great African structures. But on the other hand, what we can remember from Mr. ZENAOUI is that he succeeded in putting his country in the way of growth in spite of the great rate of jobless citizens in the country. But for other people, Mr. ZENAOUI was considered as a barrier against the involvement of democracy in the country. That's the point of view of some political parties and some NGOs. This man was taken as a heavy weight against some human rights in the country. Now I'm talking about democracy. Let us wish a very good transition for the country in the political aspect. But anyway, there is a certain fear of violence in the country. We cannot ignore that. Why do we consider that? There is a certain traditional attitude of the media during such political circumstances. There is a certain manipulation from the media, and particularly from Western media. They will start talking about the name of the people, asking people to take democracy as an end. They will start showing democracy as the way for salvation for African countries. But we here in the Pan-African Central for Scientific and Cultural Researches in Cameroon, we would like to fight against this view, this manipulated view of the media, just because we want peace in Ethiopia. We don't like to see Ethiopia fall in violences. As it happened in the past. It happened in the past in some other African countries. The actual period of the political activities in Ethiopia looks to very important, to be very delicate. So we have to negotiate it very well. It must be a success, this transition in Ethiopia. For that reason, we would like the populations to get advised about some bad aspects of the way democracy is being done in Africa today. We would like to let people know that democracy is just a means and not an end. Democracy is not an obliged passage for African countries. The main thing we need in Africa is the welfare of the populations. That means the only aspect of our national life where we should emphasize is good governance. That means the good management of resources, whether humans, goods, and so on. For example, a country like China is not a democratic country, but the Chinese are becoming a very powerful nation. That means the most thing is good governance, hard working. That's what can save African countries. There are some African countries who today are more democratic than others, but the populations do not feel well in spite of good democracy, in spite of an evolving democracy. We at the Pan-African Central, we also insist on saying that we won't like any other African citizen to die because of democracy. There is a Western manipulation in the advice for democracy. There have been too much blood on the continent. We want no more blood in Ethiopia. About 200 people died in Ethiopia in the name of democracy in 2005. We don't want that anymore. Democracy is not salvation for Africa. Let us understand that. It would be a good thing for us to start criticizing this political system. It would be a good thing for our students in universities to start making a criticized regard with respect to democracy. Because we cannot continue killing our citizens, our African people, in the name of a system that will not salvage our country. Save our country, please. Even if tomorrow it comes that there is cheating in the democratic process, we advise people to preserve peace instead of claiming their victory, claiming transparency, and so on. That we can only conduct to killings, to social conflicts in the country, tribalism, and so on. So we repeat, even if it comes that there is cheating in the democratic process tomorrow in Ethiopia, we would like the people not to go in the street, because you cannot fight an army with stones. That's absolutely impossible. We don't like people to fight again. Maybe it's better for somebody to win by cheating and preserve peace, instead of fighting against cheating and killing citizens. For some others, this is a failure. But for us, we think it's maturity. You cannot live by always saying, it has taken my thing, I will take it back. Maybe sometimes if somebody takes your thing, leave it in the name of peace. That's a good attitude in front of God. Mr. and Mrs., at the end of this small report about the political situation now in Ethiopia, we are telling again that our intention here, the Pan-African Central, is to ask Africans, we Africans, to reconsider democracy again. Democracy is not the end, it's just a means. Also, today is Ethiopia, maybe tomorrow it can be another African country. Our advices will still remain the same. The main thing necessary, we repeat again, is good governance. That is judicious management of national resources, such as money, goods, human beings, and so on. Maybe the best governance is what we can call rectocracy. That is the governance with righteous officials, from the head of state to the ministers, the directors, and so on. Righteous people. At the end, we can also say that Africa maybe should build its own political vision, whether it is democracy or not. That's, Mr. and Mrs., what we prepared for you for today. At the microphone, I am Com Bernard. Please remain on your privileged channel. Thank you again. See you next time.